You wanted to know how it started. I guess it didn't start with a bang. It started with a whisper. A lie, really. A story someone else told about me. But the bang? Oh, the bang came later, when I decided I wouldn't let that lie become my truth. It happened right there, in the doorway of her room. Obvious? How what looked obvious, Anne? I remember my voice was low but tight, like a wire about to snap. She was just standing there, scrolling on her phone like I wasn't even real. Like my anger was just background noise. You know what? She said, not even looking up. Just be more mindful next time. Mindful? The word exploded out of me, louder than I intended. Mindful of what? Of having a conversation? Of answering a question I was asked? I can't be mindful of your friends if I don't even know they're coming over. She finally looked up, her eyes flat and annoyed. I don't need to ask for your permission to have people in my own apartment. This isn't about permission, Anne. This is about respect. This is my apartment, too. She just rolled her eyes and turned away, dismissing me. And in that moment, as I stood there staring at the back of her head, the whole thing just replayed in my mind. How a simple, beautiful evening turned into this ugly, frozen silence. To understand why this cut so deep, you have to understand my world. My world, from the day I was born, was a symphony of sounds and smells that most people wouldn't put together. My father, with his quiet strength and hands that knew their way around a wok just as well as an engine, came from a small village outside of Guangzhou. My mother, with a laugh that could fill a stadium and a spirit just as vibrant, grew up in Mexico City, surrounded by the rhythm of mariachi and the scent of roasting chilies. They met in a community college English class in California. Two people from opposite ends of the world, drawn together by a shared dream and the clumsy, beautiful struggle of learning a new language. Their love story wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. It was a fusion, just like everything else they built together. Our home wasn't just a house. It was a culinary and linguistic sandbox. I grew up with Mandarin bedtime stories and Spanish lullabies. Weekends were a sensory overload in the best possible way. The sharp, savory punch of soy sauce would mingle with the earthy warmth of cumin. The steam from a pot of perfectly cooked rice would meet the fragrant cloud rising from a pan of sautéing onions and garlic. My dad taught me how to fold a dumpling with the precision of a surgeon, and my mom taught me how to make salsa that had just the right amount of kick, enough to make you sweat a little, but still want to come back for more. Their greatest creation, though, was something they called dragon's breath tacos. It was my dad's recipe for char siu, the sweet and savory Cantonese barbecue pork, but instead of putting it in a bun, my mom would shred it and serve it in a warm corn tortilla with a spicy avocado tomatillo salsa and a sprinkle of cotija cheese and cilantro. It was them, on a plate, a bridge built of cilantro and soy sauce. It was my favorite thing in the world. And that is what I was making 2 nights ago. The apartment was quiet. My third roommate, Chloe, was at her part-time job, and I thought Anne was out for the night. The kitchen was my sanctuary. Music was playing softly. The window was cracked open, letting in the cool evening air, and the smell of the pork roasting in the oven with that signature sweet, sticky glaze was starting to fill our little space. I hit a snag with the salsa. I couldn't remember if Mom used 1 or 2 serrano peppers, so I did what I always do. I called her. The phone rang twice before she picked up, her cheerful voice immediately flooding my ear. We switched to Spanish instantly, a comfortable habit. It's our language of family, of secrets, of cooking. I was laughing, scribbling a note on a napkin when the front door opened. It was Anne, with 2 guys I'd never seen before trailing behind her. She gave me a quick, tight-lipped wave and hustled them into the living room, not bothering with an introduction. It was fine. Anne was always a little possessive of her friends, a little weird about sharing her social circle. I just shrugged, finished my call with my mom, 2 peppers, of course, and went back to my salsa. The pork was almost done, the aroma now so thick and delicious you could practically taste it in the air. A few minutes later, one of the guys wandered into the kitchen. He was tall, with kind eyes and a friendly smile. "Hey," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "I'm sorry to bother you, but what is that incredible smell?" I smiled back. It was a question I was used to and happy to answer. "It's pork," I explained. "It's for these tacos my parents invented. It's kind of a Chinese-Mexican fusion thing." His eyebrows shot up, genuinely intrigued. "No way, that sounds amazing. Who's Chinese and who's Mexican?" "My dad's Chinese, my mom's Mexican," I said, dicing the last of the onion. He nodded, processing it. "Okay, that makes sense now. I heard you on the phone earlier. Was that Spanish? I thought I heard Spanish." "Yeah, it was," I laughed. "I was on the phone with my mom asking for an emergency salsa consultation. I grew up speaking both Spanish and Mandarin with my parents. That was it. That was the moment. The showing off. The guy, he introduced himself as Mark, was fascinated. Not in a weird, prying way, but with the genuine curiosity of someone who just thinks the world is an interesting place. He asked what it was like growing up with two languages, if I ever got them mixed up. He asked about the food, about what other crazy fusions my parents had come up with. We just talked for maybe 15, 20 minutes. It was easy, pleasant, normal. When the pork was done, I offered him a piece to try. His eyes went wide. "That is seriously the best thing I have ever tasted," he said, and I felt a little glow of pride. It wasn't just pork. It was my family. It was my story. He went back to the living room, and that was that. Anne and her friends left a little while later. She yelled a quick bye from the door, and I yelled one back from the kitchen. I cleaned up, ate my dinner, and thought nothing more of it. The betrayal came the next morning, not with a confrontation, but with the cold digital buzz of my phone. It was a text from Chloe, our other roommate. It was just a screenshot of a text conversation between her and Anne. Chloe had asked how her night was. Anne's reply was underneath. A series of little gray bubbles that landed like punches to my gut. "It was okay. Kinda weird, though. My friend Mark was there, and my roommate was being so extra." "Like how?" Chloe asked. She made this big show of cooking some exotic food and then made sure he heard her speaking Spanish on the phone. Then she gave him this whole sob story about her background. She was so obviously trying to flirt with him, just showing off to get his attention. It was cringe. I read it once, then twice. My blood went cold, then hot. Cringe? A sob story? Flirting? Showing off? My heritage. The thing my parents built from nothing. The beautiful, complicated tapestry of my entire life. She had reduced it to a cheap party trick, a way to get a guy's attention. And the lie was so insidious. She'd twisted an innocent conversation into a calculated performance. She had watched a normal, friendly human interaction and seen only scheming, seen only me, trying to be something I wasn't, instead of just being everything that I am. That was the moment that the world she and I shared, the polite fiction of our roommate relationship. It just shattered. It felt like walking into a room and realizing the person you trusted had been telling everyone you were a monster the whole time. My mind started racing, replaying every interaction, every shared meal, every time I'd spoken Spanish or Mandarin on the phone in our apartment. Had she always thought this? Had she been harboring this weird, ugly resentment this whole time? The anger was so sharp it almost felt like grief. She hadn't just insulted me, she had insulted my parents. She had insulted their love story, their struggle, their home, my home. I knew I couldn't let it go. This wasn't a case of, oh, she was just in a bad mood. This was a fundamental misunderstanding, or worse, a deliberate misrepresentation of who I am. So I made a plan, a very simple one. I wasn't going to scheme. I wasn't going to send passive-aggressive texts. I was going to walk to her door, knock, and talk to her, face to face. I needed to look her in the eye and hear her say it to my face. I needed to understand what was going on in her head that could possibly lead her to that conclusion. I waited until I got home from class the next day. I took a deep breath, trying to push down the trembling rage and find a calm, firm place to speak from. I walked down the short hallway to her room and knocked twice. "Yeah?" Her voice was muffled. I opened the door a crack. "Hey, Anne, you got a minute? We need to talk." She was sitting on her bed, scrolling on her laptop. She sighed, a deep put-upon sound. "I'm kinda busy." "This will be quick," I said, stepping into the room. I held up my phone, the screenshot already on the screen. "I need you to explain this." She glanced at the phone and her face immediately soured. There was no shame, no surprise, just annoyance. The annoyance of being caught. "Chloe showed you that?" She scoffed. Unbelievable. "Don't put this on Chloe," I said, my voice steady. "You're the one who wrote it. I want to know why." She shrugged, a gesture of pure dismissal that set my teeth on edge. "Look, it's not that deep. It's just how it came across." What came across, Anne?" I pressed. "Me cooking dinner in my own home? Me speaking my own language to my own mother?" Mark came into the kitchen. He started the conversation. He asked me questions. I answered them. What part of that is showing off? "Oh, come on," she said, finally closing her laptop with a snap. Her eyes were hard. The whole thing. The, "Oh, look at me, my parents are from 2 different countries, I'm so special, I speak all these languages." You were laying it on so thick. It was obvious you were into Mark and wanted him to think you were, like, worldly and interesting. The sheer condescension in her voice, it was staggering. I just stared at her. I am worldly and interesting, Anne. Not because I'm trying to be, but because that's my life. My background isn't a personality trait I put on to impress your friends. It's who I am. When someone asks me what I'm cooking, and it's a dish that literally represents my entire family history, what am I supposed to say? Oh, just pork? That's when she said it, the line that brought us to the beginning of this story. You know what? She said, crossing her arms. Just be more mindful next time. And we were off. We had the argument. The one where I was practically yelling and she was acting like I was a hysterical child throwing a tantrum. The one that ended with her turning her back on me and me storming out of her room, my heart hammering against my ribs. The fallout was immediate and absolute. It's like a wall of ice descended in the middle of our apartment. She doesn't speak to me. If I walk into the kitchen while she's there, she grabs her stuff and leaves without a word. When I see her, she looks right through me. It's not just awkward, it's hostile. It feels like I'm a ghost in my own home. Worse, I can feel it poisoning her relationship with Chloe, who's now stuck in the middle. Chloe is trying to be neutral, but it's tense. The easy, friendly atmosphere we used to have is just gone. It's been replaced by silence, slammed doors, and the constant, suffocating feeling of being judged. And the most twisted part of all of this? She's making me question myself. Not what I did. I know I did nothing wrong. Answering a question about yourself isn't a crime. But I'm questioning me. Have I been doing this all along? Do other people see me this way? As some kind of performer, putting on a show? My culture, my languages, the food I love? They aren't accessories. They're my bones. They're my blood. And she made me feel like they were just cheap jewelry I was showing off at a party. She made me feel like my whole identity was an inconvenience to her social life. So I'm living in this bizarre standoff, trapped in a lease with someone who seems to fundamentally resent my very existence. All because I answered a question, honestly and with a little bit of pride. The pride she twisted into something ugly. I can't change who I am. I can't unlearn Mandarin. I can't forget my mom's recipes or the stories my dad told me. Being myself is the only thing I know how to do. So my question is, in a world where you're supposed to embrace who you are, am I the asshole for actually doing it?